Spoiler warning! This is your spoiler warning for this episode. In the podcast, we talk about banana fish, Our Flag Means Death, and Supernatural. But we really only get into the finer plot points of banana fish. Check the podcast description for the timestamps on those discussions if you don't want to get spoiled. Now, on to the show. In the last episode, my theory on how fandoms disappear if an ending is bad, or slowly fade if an ending is good, with divisive endings making their fandoms stick around for much longer, was thoroughly disproved. Or at least, I found fans, journalists, and others who disagreed with the idea. And apparently, it's not even unanimous that Game of Thrones had a terrible ending. A fact that left even my editor reeling.
Sadie, I just don't believe it. I mean, who are these people?
While I recover from the squashing of my theory from last episode, I want to dig into another axis of endings besides good or bad. And that's, was it accepted? Or did fans set out en masse to rewrite the ending? Luckily for us, there are ways we can examine which shows left their fans desperate to rewrite the story's end. With data. Here's where my actual full-time job at the Data Science Institute is somewhat applicable. But instead of revealing my true level of fangirlishness to my coworkers, I decided to turn to someone already in the fandom.
In fandom, I'm known as Destination Toast, or people just call me Toast or Toasty.
Toast has a very particular set of skills. Skills that involve gleaning data from the fanfiction platform Archive of Our Own, or AO3 for short.
Fandom Archive of Our Own has really awesome, easily accessible data, and as you're using the site, they also just highlight for you, like if you're looking at a particular tag, like say a fandom tag, or some of the tags are tropes or moods or other things like that. So if you're looking through the fluff tag or the Sherlock tag or whatever, it's also really easy to see, like, what are the top 10 tags that co-occur with this, or the top 10 relationships or other things like that. And so Archive of Our Own has this great folksonomy where all of the users get to create tags for things, and then these cool tag wranglers who go through and group those together. And because of that, they've got this awesome system where you can quickly see all these numbers.
Toast got their start just creating simple graphs comparing tags or tags within fandoms. But they've explored way more questions since then. If you have a Tumblr account, I highly suggest checking out some of the other data questions that Toast has investigated. One of the most relevant tags we're about to explore is the fixit tag.
Fixit is usually because people are unhappy with something that happened in a show, or in this case, in all the data that I was grabbing for you, it was all about TV shows. But sometimes people also use fixit because they're sort of just exploring, they didn't necessarily dislike what happened in the show. Sometimes they think it was even the fitting thing, but sometimes they're like, oh, but even though I respect it and it was a good choice for the show, I'm sad that my favorite character or my favorite relationship or something ended up sad or whatever, and I kind of want to explore a different path that they could have taken.
So, I went to Toast for some stats about which TV fandoms are writing how much fan fiction, and how many of those stories are finale fixits. Sometimes these explorations can be labeled under fixit or canon divergence, or sometimes other tags altogether. But it's important to remember
all of the data that we're about to talk about is based on how people are using tags to describe their work. Different people will tag things differently, and a lot of people won't even think to tag anything at all.
So, with the caveat that tags aren't perfect, here's what Toast found.
There's, almost 200,000 works out there tagged fixit. The archive currently, I believe, has about 12 million works, and so it's by no means like all the works or anything, or even most of the works, but still, there's like 200,000 works tagged fixit or one of the things underneath it in that umbrella, and like that's a ton.
The next highest similar tag was character death fix, which is not a tag used all that often by the authors themselves. Rather, this seems to be a useful organizational tool created and used by tag wranglers. Character death fix tagged works included over 86,000 entries. To literally no one's surprise, fans care a lot about our favorite characters, and we will write entire fixit storylines to do those characters justice. Or at least give them the ending that we think those characters deserve. The next step in this analysis by Toast was to look at the top television fandoms that were tagged with a fixit tag.
So you had asked me, what are the fandoms with the most works tagged fixit? And so I did then go out and look at which fandoms have the most works that use one of these tags. I will say that looking through the list, we see a whole bunch of things. So just to name like the top 5 on this list for the listeners, the one with the most is Stranger Things, which has almost 10,000 fan works tagged fixit. Then Supernatural is second, then Naruto, Teen Wolf, one of the Star Wars shows, Clone Wars, and Game of Thrones. So I guess that's the top 6. I can't count.
For my fellow SPN family listeners, we have, at last count, 7,746 fixit fix, earning us that second place ranking. Nearly tied for third place, Naruto has 5,692 and Teen Wolf has 5,664. Happy to see the ending we love to hate, Game of Thrones, in 7th place with 3,193 stories. You can see all this data and more on Toast's Tumblr and AO3 account, which I will be linking in the show notes. These might seem like really impressive numbers, and they are, but we have to remember the relative size of the fandom that they're coming from.
If a fandom is like Supernatural and is incredibly huge, which all of the ones I listed just about are amongst some of the top fandoms overall, like if you've got a fandom that's really huge, like maybe it's just got a lot of fixit because it's got a lot of everything.
So let's account for fandom size. Which fandoms have a high percentage of fanfiction stories tagged as fixit or one of the derivative tags? This is a little more complicated because it's a harder analysis to run on AO3's data. Toast couldn't just pull the numbers for every single television series, so they had to select a few based on best guesses.
In this case, I basically looked at all of the fandoms that commonly used a whole bunch of different fixit tags and all of the fandoms that have a special tag for like a particular episode fixit.
This means that the data set is probably quite robust, but almost certainly incomplete.
I would not be surprised when I post this if a whole bunch of people come in and share, oh, my fandom that isn't on this list also has a really high percentage of fixit. And that's one of the nice things about the fandom community also. And people are very curious about data, and then they are often willing to share like other things that I don't manage to capture in my graphs.
So putting that caveat aside, who tops the charts for largest percentage of fixit fanfiction on AO3? It's, frankly, a show I've never heard of, but am now curious to check out. Must be a masochist for difficult endings, huh?
Basically, 18% of the things in the Banana Fish fandom, which has thousands of fan works, I think like 5,000 fan works, are, so yeah, we've never heard of it, definitely, but it is not a tiny fandom either. And so I was also surprised to find that 18% of them are tagged fixit.
Nearly 1 in 5 of all Banana Fish fan works are fixits? That is truly a wildly high number. Second place, the show Victoria, is only slightly lower at about 15%. Banana Fish is an anime based on a manga from the 80s about street gangs in New York City. It seems that the majority of the fixit fics are specifically about a character surviving. Spoilers for Banana Fish, I guess, but the main tag seems to be Ash Lynx Lives. And just for comparison with the overall norms on AO3,
18% is really high. Like, I think the average is somewhere around, for Archive of Our Own, is somewhere around 1.5% of Archive of Our Own is tagged fixit.
Coming back to what seemed like more common or popular fandoms, third place of the highest percentages for fixit fanfiction works was Stranger Things.
Stranger Things is still very high on this list. Stranger Things, 11% of works are tagged fixit. That's really huge. It is, again, mostly about a particular character death that is getting fixed. And that seems to be driving many of these really passionate cases are mostly about a particular character.
Just to run you through the next 4 of the top 7 TV fandoms Toast looked at with highest percentage of fixits, we have Young Royals, Babylon 5, The Good Doctor, and Star Wars The Clone Wars. Once again, looking how fandoms stack up is really interesting, and you should look at the graphs made by Toast. One other show I want to mention from these top fixit fandoms is Our Flag Means Death. Or, as my husband and I jokingly call it, the Gay Pirate Show. I asked Toast to look at all these numbers before Our Flag Means Death officially announced that they weren't getting a 3rd season.
Our Flag Means Death is something where there were definitely some character beats that people wanted to address that they were unhappy about, and there's all of this meta stuff going on about show cancellation and things that I'm sure also makes a big difference.
I would be curious to see if that percentage has now gone up even more. Are fans turning to fanfiction to make up for the next chapter in this story that they were denied? It certainly wouldn't surprise me. I did, of course, have to ask about Supernatural specifically as well.
Interestingly, it had 2.7% tagged fixit, the exact same as my current fandom, Ted Lasso. They both had very strong responses to their finales.
2.7% certainly isn't Banana Fish levels. But remember, it's still well above the average for all TV fandoms on AO3.
Supernatural scored above average, and we will see that there's like a ton of people, like the finale especially had a big impact on how people were writing about Supernatural, and I want to dig into that with you in a bit. But it is interesting to me, like 2.7 is definitely well above the average, but also like it's fairly small in the overall fandom, right? So there's still, most Supernatural fanfic and fan works posted to AO3 just don't address it.
So the TV series with the most fixit fics proportionally is Banana Fish. And yes, Supernatural fixit fics are slightly above average for a fandom. But we still haven't dug into whether there's a difference between a fixit and fixit finale. Well, turns out we can answer this by looking at specific episode tags. Of course, we have to remember that we're looking at tags here that are added by either tag wranglers or the authors themselves. So there are undoubtedly unaccounted for stories that were missed by either the author or a tag wrangler. And in fact, there seems to be some internal consistency within fandoms that differ across fandom groups for various shows.
Different fandoms have very different habits about like whether or not people tend to tag the episodes that they're writing about and how those tags are arranged and so. So like Miraculous Ladybug fandom and Doctor Who fandom both seem to have, for many of the episodes, they will have an episode tag that's like, the episode : and then name of the episode. And for many of the episodes, they will also have an episode fixit for the same thing.
Fandoms have their own internally consistent rules for behavior, and that extends to the tags they use on their stories as well. And if it's a big enough fandom that's highly active as the show's ending its original run, we seem to find more episode-specific tags.
In Supernatural and Game of Thrones, for instance, a whole bunch of episodes from near the end of the series ended up getting tagged with fixits.
Now, I just have to preface this by saying this data dive all started as a hunch that SPN fans feel very, very strongly about the ending of the series. Thus, it made sense that there would be a lot of stories trying to rewrite the ending to match what that fan hoped would happen. But y'all...
By far, the most commonly used episode fixit tag is the Supernatural finale.
When Toast says by far, they are not being overdramatic. Supernatural's season 15, episode 20, Carry On, has 840 stories under the episode-specific fixit tag. The next closest episode fixit is The Witcher's season 1, episode 6, Rare Species, at a measly 214. Second place has 1/4 the amount of fic compared to Supernatural. And it's not just the final episode.
The last 3 episodes, they all show up on this list somewhere, but they all also, like, if you look at just the time series of when people started using the fixit tag in the Supernatural fandom, it was not the very end. And I think same thing for Game of Thrones.
The second to last episode of Supernatural, Inherit the Earth, comes in third place with 163 stories. And the third to last Supernatural episode, Despair, comes in 11th place with 58 stories. Other big fandoms that showed up on the episode-specific list include Doctor Who, BBC's Sherlock, Good Omens, DC's Legends of Tomorrow, and Miraculous Ladybug, which is a kids' show? So I don't know what's going on there. Once again, these are fandoms that had really strong responses to specific episodes, usually episodes at the end of seasons or at the series finale. And I got curious if we could see how fandom engagement changed over that period of time. I thought, if a show ends too terribly, then the fandom just drops it altogether. But if it's good right up until the very end, where you don't like the last plot twist or something happens to your favorite character, then you might expect to see fanfiction authors continuing to write new ways to fix those failings. And obviously, I wanted to look at this with Supernatural in particular. And Toast was game to indulge me.
Archive of Our Own was started by volunteers back at the end of 2008, so I only looked at data going back to 2009, even though, the show has been around longer than that.
So the entirety of Supernatural's run isn't actually captured on AO3. The show started in 2005, and while there might be fanfiction dating back that far, it was probably located on other servers like Wattpad or fanfiction.net or LiveJournal. Looking at the number of works tagged as fixits by week, Toast and I saw the first distinct spike on the date that Season 12, Episode 23, All Along the Watchtower, first aired.
I feel like it would really help me actually to see a graph of like a timeline of when various characters died, because I know that all the characters have like died multiple times, but I feel like it would be helpful for interpreting the data to see.
We can easily avoid the spoiler, so let's just say there's a major character death at the end of that episode that put much of the fandom to work, writing fixits during the summer hiatus as they waited for Season 13 to begin. For context, there were 38 new stories the week after the Season 12 finale aired. The next big spike in tagged works for Supernatural shot upwards with the airing of Season 15, Episode 18, Despair. That spike was made of over 100 works tagged with the fixit tag.
I just actually looked at the first week after each of the finales just to see like what were people doing. And definitely Season 15, people wrote like way more in the week immediately following the series finale than they did in any of the other weeks, but all of them, there were hundreds of new works posted to Archive of Our Own in the week immediately following. And of course, like, it takes time to write fic for many people, and so like a lot of work that people wrote in response didn't come out in that first week. However, you can sort of see that immediate response, and a lot of people were writing kind of like something short where they just felt like they had to get it out to respond to the episode.
That response stayed high for the last 3 episodes of the series, with 593 works coming on the tail of the show's final episode.
After the series finale is like one of the biggest, maybe the biggest thing that I've ever seen in terms of like almost half of the works were tagged either fixit or canon divergence in that first week that were posted.
And it's not just the raw numbers that are impressive. This truly represented an unusual percentage of the fan works that were being created at the time.
Following each of the last 3 episodes, there's just like this huge increase. So after episode 18 in the last season, it was up to 12% were tagged fixit. Then the next episode 19, 15%. And then after the finale, episode 20, it was 42% of things in that next week were tagged fixit.
This wasn't just a flash in the pan either.
And when you zoom out a bit and look at what happens after that, basically things have changed thereafter in the fandom. It never goes back to like the same low amount that it had been before. It has decreased a little bit, but it still looks like it's about like 4.5 or close to 5% of things are still being tagged fixit in the Supernatural fandom.
Yay, us? I guess we are truly a unique fandom in how much we cannot let the ending of Supernatural go. And look, I'm one of you. I've read way more than my fair share of fix-it stories to help stem the grief over the ending of this show. But I was also sad when Star Trek DS9 ended, or Legends of Tomorrow. But something about Supernatural in particular has made it impossible for so many of us to accept the ending and move on. Maybe we should blame the cast who keep teasing a return? Yeah, we'll get to them later. But at least I wasn't the only one who was captivated by these unique trends in writing fix-its. Asking Toast for help on these questions sparked new ideas for them as well.
I'm curious which fandoms stick around but keep writing fix-its, which fandoms people just get pissed off and leave, and which fandoms people stick around but maybe mostly focus on stuff that they're happier about instead. And I don't really have a good grouping of that yet, but this whole exercise has made me really curious to dig in more and try to look for those kinds of clusters.
So, check out follow-up posts from Destination Toast to start to answer some of those questions. Next time on In Defense of Fandom. Does it matter if the show is more episodic versus narrative for how the ending is perceived by the fandom? How much does a show have to set up in earlier seasons to earn its payoff at the end? Let's talk about TJLC, or the John Locke Conspiracy in BBC's Sherlock fandom, the Chekhov's gun that was the premise for How I Met Your Mother, and how limited series like Band of Brothers feel different than long-running shows like CSI. See you in 2 weeks. Hey y'all, this is Sadie from the future with a quick postscript note. Toasty has now run some additional analyses, including on the Game of Thrones fandom. So check out those results in the podcast show notes. They're super cool. Editorial support was provided by Dr. Anna Funk. Music was composed and performed by Chris Scott. Cover art was designed by Liz Hand. In Defense of Fandom was made possible through an unhealthy obsession and your support via Ko-fi. Thanks especially to Meg B and Catalanta, who were the first supporters of this season of the pod. If you're not already supporting the show and you'd like to, you can find a link in the show notes to our Ko-fi. A one-time donation of any amount will get you access to behind-the-scenes content, including the audio of my full conversation with Richard Speight Jr., Destination Toast, and other guests you'll be hearing from across the episode. Seriously, you'll want to hear Toast and I's conversation in full. Your support is deeply appreciated. Actors being like, ooh, we're gonna do a new season. Ooh, what if we did a reboot? Ooh, we just need time. Poop or get off the potty, y'all. Come on.